About 3 hours after Air Force One lifted off from Beijing, the President of the United States opened Truth Social and typed 11 words that lit up Washington. China has a ballroom, and so should the USA. He had just walked through the Great Hall of the People with Xi Jinping. Now, mid-flight, at 79 years old, Donald Trump was not talking about tariffs, Taiwan, or trade deals. He was talking about a dance floor. And not just any dance floor. A $400 million, 90,000 square foot, drone-proof, bulletproof, missile-resistant mega ballroom rising on the bones of what used to be the East Wing of the White House. The original price tag was $200 million. That number doubled. And on top of it, Senate Republicans are pushing a separate $1 billion security package, taxpayer money, for the underground systems alone. Let that settle for a second. Rewind to the trip itself. She rolled out a state banquet inside the Great Hall of the People, the cavernous government complex anchoring Tiananmen Square. He gave Trump a rare guided tour of the Zongnanhai compound, the secret garden at the heart of Chinese power. He posed with him in a historic ballroom used by Communist Party leaders. The optics were enormous. The body language said honored guest. The atmosphere said imperial reception. And the American president loved it. He posted a photo from the tour and called Xi one of the world's great leaders. Then he hit publish on the Ballroom Envy post. The message was not a policy statement. It was a vibe. A flex. A demand. The man who spent a decade campaigning on America First had just watched a foreign capital welcome him with marble columns and red carpets, and decided Washington needed to match the spectacle. Here is the thing. America already has a White House. It has been standing since 1800. Presidents have hosted kings, queens, popes, and returning hostages inside the East Room for more than 2 centuries. That room seats about 200 people. The new ballroom will seat 650. It will be roughly twice the size of the original proposal. The administration says the older spaces were never adequate. Critics say they were good enough for 45 predecessors. The East Wing, by the way, is gone. Demolition crews tore it down in October. Photos of cranes ripping through historic walls went viral. Preservationists called it vandalism. The administration called it progress. Trump called it the start of the finest facility of its kind anywhere in the United States. The wrecking balls did not pause for public comment. The bulldozers did not wait for Congress. The footprint of First Lady offices was simply erased. Now back to the China comparison. The Great Hall of the People is enormous. It seats roughly 10,000 people in its main auditorium. It was built in 1959, during the Great Leap Forward, in just 10 months. A Soviet-style architectural flex meant to dwarf foreign visitors. When the American president walked under those ceilings, he was not just attending a banquet. He was standing inside a piece of political theater engineered to make any guest feel small. That is the part nobody is saying out loud. China did not build that hall for parties. It built it as a permanent statement of state power. Marble, columns, scale, light. Every detail engineered to communicate, we are eternal. When the U.S. president walks out of that building and immediately announces he wants the same thing for the White House, the message is loud. The host set the agenda. The guest carried home the inspiration. And the inspiration did not stop at architecture. After leaving Beijing, Trump also hyped a communist-style park concept and shared a golden statue of himself that had been circulating online. He boasted about TikTok view counts. He talked about ahead-of-schedule construction. In one social media spree, he stitched together every aesthetic he had just absorbed. Monumental scale. Golden imagery. Controlled platform virality. And a strongman silhouette, polished to a shine. The ballroom price tag is where the story gets uncomfortable. The administration insists private donors will cover the $400 million construction cost. But the security wraparound, the missile-resistant steel columns, the military-grade venting, the drone-proof ceiling, the blast-proof glass, that is where the public bill kicks in. Senate Republicans want a $1 billion reconciliation package for above-ground and below-ground protection. That is nearly 3 times the construction cost. For one room. Compare that to history. The original White House cost about $232,000 to build in the 1790s. Adjusted for inflation, that is roughly $8 million in today's dollars. The Truman renovation in 1949, which gutted and rebuilt the entire interior of the residence, came in around $5.7 million, about $80 million today. The new ballroom alone, before security, runs several times that figure. With security, almost 20 times more. Defenders say modern presidents need modern facilities. A state dinner with 650 seats. A secure indoor venue protected from drones and explosives. A space worthy of welcoming a Chinese leader without sending guests to a temporary tent on the South Lawn. They argue that the East Room cap of 200 forced administration after administration to improvise. They argue that the optics of a tent next to the Rose Garden quietly weakened American prestige around the world. Critics see something else entirely. They see a private real estate developer instinct applied to a public monument. They see a president who attacked predecessors for cost overruns now defending a project whose budget doubled overnight. They see a security justification that ballooned from a real concern, a foiled incident at the White House Correspondents Association dinner, into a billion-dollar shopping list. They see a vanity wing dressed up convincingly as a hardened bulletproof, drone-proof vault. Then there is the China angle. For decades, U.S. presidents visited Beijing and came home talking about human rights, trade deficits, intellectual property theft, Taiwan, or technology export controls. This time, the president came home and talked about a ballroom. That single shift in focus is, by itself, the story. The world's largest economy and the world's largest population just held a summit. And the headline the American leader chose to push was, of all things, interior design. Strategic analysts at outlets including CNN and Time noted that the Beijing trip produced more vibes than details. Few concrete deliverables on Taiwan. Few breakthroughs on tariffs. Few public commitments on fentanyl precursors or rare earth exports. What the visit did deliver was atmosphere. She clearly understood his guest. He gave him pageantry. He gave him symbolism. He let him be photographed inside the most exclusive rooms in the entire Chinese government, on camera, smiling. And in return, the visiting president gave Xi something every authoritarian host wants. Public, enthusiastic American validation of the regime's aesthetic. Calling Xi one of the world's great leaders. A ballroom envy post. A golden statue share. A celebration of TikTok numbers. From a Chinese soft power perspective, this trip was a masterclass. The visiting superpower's president left Beijing not just impressed, but actively trying to copy the host's interiors back home in his own capital. Now zoom out. The ballroom is scheduled to open around September 2028. Just weeks before the next presidential election. Whoever inherits the White House that January will walk into a building that physically looks different. The East Wing they grew up seeing in photos? Gone. A new ornate 650-seat venue stands in its place. Whether they wanted it or not, every future president will host inside a room that Trump first dreamed up on Air Force One. That permanence is the part most coverage misses. Tax cuts can be reversed. Executive orders can be revoked. Cabinet picks can be fired. But a building, once built, is generational. The Truman Balcony is still called the Truman Balcony 75 years later. The Kennedy Rose Garden carried that name for decades. By 2028, there will be a Trump ballroom. Physically, structurally, legally embedded in the residence of every future American commander-in-chief, regardless of party affiliation. There is also a quieter question hiding inside that Truth Social post. If China having a ballroom means America must have one too, where does that logic stop? China has a high-speed rail network spanning more than 28,000 miles. The US has fewer than 400 miles of true high-speed rail. China has launched its third aircraft carrier. The ballroom security budget alone is closing in on the price tag of a serious warship. Priorities reveal themselves. Defenders will say it is a false comparison. A ballroom is funded mostly by donors. Rail and carriers need congressional appropriations. Fair enough on paper. But political will flows where the leader's attention flows. And right now, the most visible post-China deliverable from the Oval Office is not a manufacturing initiative, an infrastructure plan, or a chip export update. It is a 90,000 square foot party room, with drone-proof glass, scheduled to open in 2028. So here is the question worth arguing about in the comments. When a US president visits the most powerful rival on Earth, walks through their most sacred rooms, and comes home demanding a matching version for himself, is that confidence, insecurity, or something stranger sitting in between? Is the new ballroom a symbol of American greatness, or the clearest sign yet that the host nation quietly won the trip? Drop your take below. I read every comment. That's all for today. If you found this useful, like, subscribe, and share it with someone who'd care. Catch you next time.